Last month, Donald Trump summoned a who's who of top lobbyists and executives from the oil and gas industry to the upscale La Quinta/bribery palace he calls Mar-a-Lago, and proceeded to solicit $1 billion from the fossil fuel companies to get him elected, as multiple outlets have now reported. In exchange, the Washington Post reports, quote, he vowed to immediately reverse dozens of President Biden's environmental rules and policies and stop new ones from being enacted. The New York Times says, quote, Trump told the group that they should donate $1 billion to his presidential campaign because, if elected, he would roll back environmental rules that he said hamper their industry. He told executives the amount of money they would save in taxes and legal expenses after he repealed regulations would more than cover $1 billion contribution. Now, to be clear, this is not prosecutable under current law, particularly in the way that the Supreme Court has come to define bribery as a crime, which is extremely attenuated these days. But in common parlance, it is a political quid pro quo, one that is so shocking that while we don't know the sources of these articles, it sure looks like Trump's offer managed to stun even a bunch of oil executives who are used to the most craven parts of big money in politics as anyone in the entire country. Lisa Friedman is an author of that article for the New York Times, where she covers climate policy and politics, and she joins me now. Lisa, great to have you. Will you just describe to me the setting, the conditions under which this event happened, what the folks who were invited were told?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So last month, around April 11th, a number of executives and lobbyists for oil and gas companies arrived at Mar-a-Lago for what was described as an energy roundtable. They dined on chopped steak, we were told, by people in the room. And former President Donald Trump promised to unravel President Biden's climate change agenda. Top on the list, we were told, were regulations that were put in place recently encouraging electric vehicle deployment. Wind energy was a target, and of course, a temporary ban that the Biden administration imposed on permitting new liquefied natural gas terminals. The president, the former president, then told the crowd that we were told that they should want to raise $1 billion for him because this was going to help their industries, and the money that they would save in taxes and legal fees fighting regulations would be dwarfed.
So there's sort of two pieces of context here. One is that Citizens United, before Citizens United, this wouldn't even really be a plausible ask, right? I mean, if you're trying to raise $1 billion in hard money, campaign limited $2,600 bites, it's not going to happen. It is in the environment we live in now where the ask, if audacious, is plausible in the sense that, the American Petroleum Institute could get $1 billion channeled into something that some super PAC, right?
Certainly. I would note that the way it was relayed to us was less of a you do this for me, I'll do this for you, and more of a you in the room should want to raise $1 billion for this campaign because Trump, too, will be ready on day one to unravel the regulations and policies that are hurting your businesses.
Now, one of the other interesting bits of context here is that obviously the people in that room, I think, are opposed to the Biden climate agenda on green energy and also opposed to those regulatory stances you took, no new permitting on exporting liquefied natural gas, a pause on permits to the Gulf of Mexico, taking Alaska offline, et cetera, right? Exactly. But if I'm not mistaken, we're pumping more oil and gas than any country in history ever, and they're making record profits, right?
It's incongruous, isn't it? You're absolutely right. The Biden administration is overseeing record oil and gas production. He is getting no credit for that from the oil and gas industry. And he also, and the administration also has been pretty quiet about that fact. Yes. You have to mention also, they're not eager to tout that. They're very worried that environmental groups, especially young people, remain concerned about a number of green lights that the administration offered, last year, particularly on Willow, a major oil development in Alaska. There's a lot of lingering anger over that, especially with young people. And so we're finding the administration is not, isn't out there telling people that they're doing a lot of development.
Totally. But the people who do know it, I would suspect, are the people in that room.
And they give him no credit.
They probably know that they're pumping more oil and gas and doing pretty well, right? I mean, I think they know that. But they're still very angry at him, is my sense from people I've talked to inside the energy world in the U.S.
I've talked to executives with some major oil and gas companies who are very much in favor of the Inflation Reduction Act, the landmark climate law that has pumped $370 some odd billion into renewable energy, also carbon capture and storage, something the fossil fuel industry is eager for, also direct air capture, also hydrogen.
Yes.
At the same time, when President Biden made the decision to pause LNG exports, it really touched off a nerve within the oil and gas community that was already angry and frustrated over decisions like curtailing drilling in the Gulf of Mexico and other places. This has really struck a nerve, and there has been certainly no credit given to the administration for the record output of oil and gas that we're seeing right now. The argument from the oil industry is that is because of policies that preceded the Biden administration.
Yes. Well, they're gentle souls, and they get very upset when things don't go their way, and so maybe they'll come up with $1 billion for the guy who's promising the agenda of their dreams. Lisa Friedman, thank you very much.